the fact that this is a real thing, maybe I shouldn't be surprised because it's the NFL, and as I've learned from you and LeVar, like there's just business decisions that are made that just, sometimes are confusing to even people that are involved with the current team. So Matt LaFleur, the Packers head coach, was speaking in Orlando last week, and he discussed sort of one of the moves that the Packers made this offseason, which saw the departure of Aaron Jones, longtime running back there in Green Bay, a guy who came back from injury, actually played really, really well down the stretch for Green Bay last year. And Matt LaFleur said this about the decision to move on from Aaron Jones.
It kind of caught me off guard, too, to be honest with you. I mean, certainly I knew that there was some other things in play, obviously, with Aaron Jones, and I didn't quite know how everything was going to go, and it just happened really fast on that Monday. It happened really fast, so I don't know all the details of that. I'm not involved in those types of conversations, but yeah, we were super excited.
So why is he not involved in those type of conversations?
Yeah, I don't know. He should be. I mean, you are the head coach of an NFL team, and you should be aware of what's happening with your roster. And it feels like if we go back through time then, because clearly Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, when they grew apart, Aaron Rodgers was frustrated with certain people within the organization. I think it's now really easy to see who those people were, because if Matt LaFleur wasn't really in the know, or he doesn't have the power to be in the know about their roster construction and some of the decisions that they make, then it's squarely pointed at the general manager, Brian Gutekunst, and really Mark Murphy, who's kind of the acting owner of the team, even though they don't have a singular owner, if you will, right? That's more where my mind kind of leads to when you hear something like this. You're like, wait a second. So this is an organization that has been pretty successful, and they don't even allow their head coach to be involved in these conversations? Like to what degree, and what does that even mean? And I also think it draws a line now, acknowledging this. Matt LaFleur, like making this public, I think, whether he realizes it or not, it almost draws a line between him and Brian Gutekunst, because if things don't work out in the future, he can always point and say, well, look at the guy you've got building my roster right now. Like you could give him the benefit of the doubt because he's found Jordan Love. I mean, he ultimately was the one who decided to trade up and draft Jordan Love, and that seems like it's going to work out. But he's also the guy who moved on from Aaron Rodgers. And he's also the guy that during this time of year in free agency doesn't make a ton of moves and splashes. So that's more of, I think, where my mind leads to when we look back on the Aaron Rodgers departure, and even just the time that Aaron Rodgers was there, which was a good period of time with Brian Gutekunst. How that will be viewed. And I wonder if Packers fans are able to see that now.
And the fact that he also, this long after it happened, and he's still talking about how caught off guard he was and everything that went, like, that tells me that in the moment, in real time, when he found out, he was probably pissed. Like, wait a second, like we're doing this? And the fact that he kept emphasizing, it happened really quick, like really quick. Maybe there was some discussion, maybe there was some dialogue, and they just decided to pull the trigger. And next thing you know, he's looking around going, well, like, what's going on here? It's like Bill Parcells had that quote, I think it might have been about Jerry Jones, where he said, they want you to do the cooking, they ought to let you at least shop for the groceries. And it's like, if you're a cook, like, shouldn't you guys be in unison or in lockstep on what is happening? Like, there should be no surprises. Like, if that's the part that doesn't make any sense to me.
And I've got a buddy, obviously, who coaches in the league, and one of the things we talked about was during this time of year, the frustration that a lot of coaches have with their scouting department, because they're on completely separate pages. What the general manager and the front office and the scouting department believe are good prospects might be true, but it might not fit the scheme of what the coaching staff is trying to do. And so for offensive linemen in particular, or, just because, it's such a tough position nowadays, to coach and to develop, because there's less hitting, less time in the offseason, it's even more so. You're trying to plug guys in to play right away who don't have as much experience, either in that system or doing some of the blocking techniques they're asked to do. It can become really burdensome on the coach, and it might be hard to fit. There's guys on the defensive line that don't fit within the scheme of what they do. Hey, this guy's, primarily played in a 3-4 scheme, 3-down scheme. And now you're asking him to do something that he hasn't really done before. Can he do it? Is he capable of doing it? A guy who's used to playing off the edge in a 4-3 scheme as a DN. Now he's playing outside linebacker. Okay, well, what's his responsibility as an outside linebacker? He's going to be dropping into coverage more. He's going to be actually playing off the ball or out in space. Can he do that? And oftentimes you see the scout or you'll see the front office guy go, well, yeah, he's capable. His testing scores, he did this, he did that. It's like, well, that's not football. And that's where there's a huge disconnect. Organizations, when adversity strikes, oftentimes crumble or fall apart because of this, because there's that disconnect between the front office and scouting department and coaching staff. Now, in Green Bay, that hasn't necessarily been that big of an issue because they've been pretty successful. I think the question more comes down to, and it'll be written a bit this year, if the Jets end up going on to make a playoff run and win a Super Bowl with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, I think you'll always look back on his time in Green Bay and go, only one, huh? Like not more, not for a guy who's won the MVP 4 times of the league. And that's at least what my thought would be. And I think I'll always think back to the off seasons where they had capital, they had the ability to sign more guys in free agency, and they decided not to do it, or they didn't draft a first-round wide receiver for heaven's sakes, having Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback.
And they were in I think they outside of the Super Bowl, they went to 3 or 4 different conference championship games, and they always came up short. Like there was always something, and the most notable was the team that beat Dallas back in 2016 that made a run. I think they played Atlanta in the NFC title game and fell short. It's like they've had a lot of obviously. What happened against the Niners in the playoffs. There was a lot of opportunities, and they just always came up short. Now, I want to ask you this, though, and I'm not trying to listen. For Packers fans listening statewide in Wisconsin, and again, our beautiful affiliates out there, I'm not trying to be negative here, but I just want to ask Brady Quinn a question. If you saw a gambling line, for example, like an over-under line, and you saw that one side of it, either the over or the under, was at minus 155 money, while the other was plus 130 money, what would that be an indication to you if it was minus 155 money?
The expected outcome is at least based on betting standards, is much more likely for the minus money.
Okay. Reason I bring that up is because on DraftKings right now, the Packers win total is set at 10.5, and under 10.5 is minus 155.
Really?
So there's a lot of skepticism potentially from the bettors out there. Over 10.5 is at plus 130, as I mentioned, but there's a lot of skepticism that the Packers sitting at 10.5 wins, that more people feel like, or maybe more money feels like they're going to go under 10.5. And so then it becomes the question, who do you think is more likely to make the playoffs next year, the Jets or the Packers? I'll take the Jets. Take it right now.
It's an interesting question because, the Bills, we've been talking for a while about them and where they're at, on their trajectory. Have they hit their ceiling, or are they still a team capable of getting to a Super Bowl? You look at the Dolphins, they've had to make a ton of different roster decisions this offseason. What will they look like next year? And then, obviously, the Patriots, a new head coach taking over from Bill Belichick. Could they go through some growing pains? I mean, I was very bullish on the Jets last year, and that was obviously before Rodgers got hurt. So I will be this year. I think they're set up to go win and win right now if Rodgers is healthy. So I'm with you. I would bet, I guess I'll put it this way. If they were both sitting at 10.5 wins for the over-under, I would place my money on those odds for the Jets more so than for the Packers because something's off there. I mean, the NFC North, if you look at it, Cousins is even playing quarterback for the Vikings. In fact, they're right now going into the season with Sam Darnold as their starter until they find one maybe in the draft. But you're saying at best they're going to have a rookie quarterback or Darnold starting. I think that plays to the Packers' favor. You then go to the Bears. Yes, they'll be improved, but also starting a rookie quarterback in what, depending on how the season goes, could be a tumultuous season if they ended up not winning enough games and they want to move on from Matt Eberflus. He's probably the guy that's going to get the blame if things don't work out.
Yeah.
And then you have the Lions, who had a ridiculous year last year, but you'd expect them to be the favorite. So that'll be a tough opponent for them. I would think that they're the ones that are, going to win the division. So I don't know. It's odd. I would think that those numbers would be flipped for the Packers to maintain what we saw them do the second half of last season.
Yeah.